Hi, I'm Bob Vila. Welcome home again to our Vermont project here in the Quechee area. Today we'll be installing kitchen appliances, including an oven and dishwasher. Also, we'll be installing tile in one of the baths. And we're going to spend some time looking at some federal brick fronts, some nice old houses from the early 1800s, talking about their style as well as how you can repair the mortar. Stick around, it's good to have you home again. Okay, we're starting off today in the kitchen, which is about 95% complete. A few weeks ago, we installed the cabinets from Crown Point up in Claremont, New Hampshire. Now, many of the components of the house have been made right up here in northern New England, either in New Hampshire or Vermont. And it has, you know, the cabinets have the old-time look with the beadboard and the wooden knobs and a lot of interesting features. But we had left this kind of unfinished, the appliance garage, because we didn't have our Ubatuba granite in place yet. But now you can see that's been installed. We still have a couple of things to do here, like an electrical receptacle that we need, because this is a place to hide the coffee maker or the toaster or whatever. But the overall look of the kitchen, especially with the combination of glass doors and beaded doors and the granite, is very, very, you know, it's kind of what's popular right now. But today it's all about appliances. And so we've already got a couple of things in place. We're going to be getting together with our electrician, Larry Dana, and we're going to get started today with the oven. And Larry, you're just basically getting started. Now, what kind of current do you have to provide to a big oven like this?
This is a high voltage current.
220?
220 volt, yes.
Now, just what is 220?
220 is a high voltage. It's two 110s put together.
That's pretty simple.
Right.
And what you're doing essentially is delivering a lot more power to a unit that needs it because it's providing a high degree of heat.
Right, that's correct.
Now, is this a do-it-yourself project? If you've got folks that are doing their own installations at home, do you recommend that they attempt this?
No, I don't. A licensed electrician should be installing power.
Yeah.
Yes.
I always say if it's life-threatening, you ought to get a guy who's a professional to do it for you.
That's correct.
Want to take us through the steps here? I mean, what kind of a cord is it that's coming out of the wall?
We're running an 8-3 cord from the power panel in the basement. Mm-hmm. And putting it into this splice box. And this line here is the line coming from the oven itself.
So you get the cable in there, you tighten it up.
Tighten it up.
Which wires do you hook up first?
I hook the ground wire up first to the junction box, to this green ground screw down here on the bottom.
That's kind of a rule of thumb that you always connect your grounds first.
That's correct. I always do my grounds first.
It's an added safety feature.
And then my next one I do is a neutral wire.
And those would be the white wires. So you save the potentially hot for last.
Yes.
Okay, now in an oven connection like this, a junction box doesn't necessarily go back into the wall, right? It just stays loose back there?
Yeah, it's going to be floating so the unit can be set out on the floor, and if it needs to be
if it needs servicing, yeah. That's a good idea. Keep everything labeled.
Yes.
Don't forget that. Now with these new appliances, the fronts are beautifully designed, and they're not lightweight, so you always want to kind of grip them up from the bottom, right? And now the more tedious part has to do with the trim, etc. But this is one of the new Kenmore Elite ovens. It's a self-cleaning convection oven, and that's a great feature, the convection. You can see the fan back there, but that really allows you to cook a lot of different things in the oven at once and really distributes the heat all around. And I think what a lot of people like about these new designs is the fact that all the controls are flush. Because of electronics, you really don't have any more knobs and toggle switches or buttons or whatever. This can be easily cleaned and easily read. It's all very, very simple stuff. When we come back, we'll be installing more kitchen appliances. Don't go away. Okay, now we're going to talk about installing both the new dishwasher and the garbage disposer. First, a look at the Kenmore Elite dishwasher, which again, they put in the very clean design. The electronic panel is kind of on the top of the lid so that it tends to hide the controls under the kitchen counter. But everything is smooth and simple, one-piece door, and they've designed the insides so that you can get full 13-inch plates in here. A lot of people are into these big pottery plates. And in the back, you've got neat features. You can superheat the water to make sure there's no bacteria in here. And it's got a food grinder so that if the kids put in dishes that still have some food residue in there, it macerates it and gets rid of it. Oh, and this is a neat feature. This thing travels up and down so that if you want to put in tall glasses, for example, you can lower it if you have your champagne flutes or whatever, and wine glasses, you can fit them in very carefully. But Doug Buchanan is here, who's going to help us get it installed. And Doug, what's involved back there other than a plug?
Well, you got your standard plug-in for this dishwasher. It plugs into 110.
Yeah.
You got your standard drain line that is already pre-drilled in the cabinet.
And it goes up, isn't that kind of...
It does go up. The old style dishwashers have a drain solenoid. The new styles have a pump, so you want to pump up.
Yep.
And also into your garbage disposal. There's a knockout in there.
Right. And then what's the feed, the water feed made out of?
The water feed is made out of a stainless steel flexible line, which also goes through your cabinet into a main shutoff for the dishwasher only.
Now, do you have to hook that up before I push it in?
No, no.
Okay. All right. So it's got wheels on the back, and it's almost like a shopping cart. It weighs very, very little, although it is all stainless steel, and it all has the insulation right around it. And that goes right in there. And that is nice, huh?
Very nice.
Okay. Our kitchen sink looks old-fashioned, and it kind of is. It has that sense of an old farm sink. It's called a Dickinson by Kohler, and it's cast iron, enamel cast iron. And the interesting thing about it is that it seems to sit lower, and it has the enameled front plate to it. And what I like about it is if you look where the countertop kind of meets the sink, when you're working on the countertop, you can just kind of wash everything right into the sink area. But it's a deep sink, and when you're installing a garbage disposer in a deep sink, well, Doug, that presents an extra special problem, right?
Yes. What I've done already, I've already installed the basket strainer for the disposal itself.
Right.
You get down here, you got your disposal, it lifts up.
Basically, this slips and slides right into place, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there's a gasket that holds it in place with this clip.
All right, because the disposer sits lower, you've had to modify the traditional S-trap here, right?
Yes, I have.
And basically just cut a couple of lengths to make up the difference out of regular PVC. And now these get cemented onto the trap components. This is the solvent that cleans it, right?
Yes, this is a PVC cleaner primer. This goes on to wipe any of the oils, debris, anything that is on the PVC fittings or pipe itself.
So that when you bring the actual cement into play, you've got a good chemical bond.
Exactly.
And you just hold it about 5 seconds like that, right?
You twist it to make the glue go around the fitting, and then just sort of 5 seconds to help it set up.
Mm-hmm. Now that just tightens, right? There's no...
It's a compression fitting. There's
Right.
a nylon washer in there.
So there's no adhesive used of any sort. One thing you want to keep in mind is you want to have the window open when you're doing this. because the fumes can make you dizzy. All right, so that's it for the trap. What's the next step?
The last step is to connect your waste disposal or the dishwasher line to the disposal unit step.
Yeah, and that's important because all of the waste from the dishwasher needs to go through the disposer.
Yes, it does.
Thanks, Doug.
You're welcome.
Go to bobvila.com to learn more about arranging appliances in your kitchen. This is a neat feature in the kitchen, but I just wanted to kind of wrap up our kitchen tour with a quick look at the refrigerator, which again is part of this elite line. And one thing that I like about it is this wide open plan, this side-by-side door design. I mean, it might be a negative from the point of view of kids standing here trying to figure out what to get, but everything is visible, everything is clean, the controls are right out here. Anyway, we're going to take a break now from talking about kitchens and the new construction of our house here and talk a little bit about early brick federal houses here in Vermont. Brick was a very popular building material, and we went and started actually right here at the Birch-Udall House in Quechee, Vermont, with Professor Tom Visser from the University of Vermont Historic Preservation Program to learn a little bit about the type of bricks that were used and why they've lasted so long. Well, Tom, this is a brick wall built in the 1820s.
1820s.
So it still qualifies as federal period, right?
That's right.
And the brick were made right in this region of Vermont?
Yes, they were made right here on site.
Okay. So it was wonderful that they had this quality brick to build with. What type of brick is it?
What we have here is a sand-struck brick, a high-quality sand-struck brick. If you look closely, you can see a little bit of the glimmer of the sand on the surface.
Okay. And what kind of pattern did they lay it in?
It's laid in a standard bond. Here we have the headers, and then we have 9 courses of stretchers.
Okay, so the end of the brick is out to the facade, and it serves to tie the whole wall together because these are two courses thick, right?
That's right.
So you have one of headers and then 8 or 9 of running, and then another one of headers up here. Okay. What type of mortar were they using?
This is a lime and sand mortar, just lime and sand. If we look very carefully at it, we can see the wonderful tooling that was done.
Right there, and again right there. And these are marks that were laid down nearly 2 centuries ago, and they're still legible and in good condition
It's
after
really
all
quite
that
remarkable, yes. Just this simple lime and sand mortar is quite durable.
What do you call a chunk like that?
This is just a chunk of lime.
Okay, that still just sits there and survives. This has
Exactly.
never been repointed.
It's never been repointed, it's never been cleaned.
Okay. Now, there are numerous houses around here in Quechee and in the Woodstock area that exhibit the classical lines of federal architecture, but interpreted in brick. Most of them, of course, have the symmetrical fronts, the fenestration that's classically balanced, the hip roofs, the central chimney, all of those elements, yet they're interpreted in brick.
It really shows how there was quite a bit of wealth in this area during the early 18th century and 19th century.
Now, there's one place called the Sumner Mansion that we want to see, because there the brick has suffered. Built in 1811 by David Sumner, a prominent business owner in Heartland, Vermont, this house is an excellent example of federal architecture. The principal feature of the front entrance is this graceful fanlight. The door is flanked by side lights and lower panels. A Palladian window is located above the entrance, with urns above the cornice molding on the flanking windows. The house is topped with a balustrade that is a reproduction of the original. Over the years, the original brick facade on the Sumner house has suffered from misguided restoration attempts. From this, we can learn about proper preservation and restoration procedures for an antique brick home. And Tom, here we're looking at the original early 1800s brick, and a wonderful example of why you should never sandblast, right?
That's right. You can see how coarse the surface is and how the actual outside fire skin has been removed from the brick, revealing the soft inner core.
Now, can this be restored?
It cannot be restored. This is permanent damage.
So you have one option, I suppose, which is to point it up and repaint it again.
That could be
And
done.
it wasn't uncommon for a federal house to be painted. In fact, I've heard very often in the 1800s they would paint them dark red and actually score the mortar lines in white.
Often on some of the best buildings.
Yeah. But here, I suppose, what about putting some sort of masonry sealer on it?
One has to be very, very careful with masonry sealers because often they will trap moisture within the wall and they can lead to accelerated spalling of the bricks.
So if you do have paint on old brick walls, maybe the best thing is to use some sort of commercial paint remover like a caustic soda or...
Yes, yeah. Some of the peel-away type products work fairly well, or even a solvent-based stripper.
Now what can you tell us about the condition of the mortar in these joints?
Well, what we see here actually is that this is a lime and sand mortar, the original mortar, that has survived even better than the bricks have under the sandblasting.
But very often when people patch and repoint, they use a Portland cement mortar that really stands out like a sore thumb. So how do you figure out the right kind of mortar to use?
Now, not only does the Portland cement mortar stand out, but it also is too hard for the bricks, and it'll put stress on the bricks, and the bricks will fail. So one way to do the sampling here is to use a mason's chisel and to loosen a section of mortar.
And pick it out.
And then we can crush it. And this is just a geologist's mortar and pestle. I have a couple other little pieces that we've pulled out. And we can put it in this mortar and pestle. One can typically just crush it under hand pressure. The soft lime and sand mortar typically has a compressive strength of about 75 psi.
Okay.
And so one can crush it fairly well. You might have to use a hammer. But you can see here how we've crushed up some samples.
And how's this going to help us?
Well, what we can do is we can dissolve out the lime binder by using vinegar. Here we just have household distilled white vinegar, and if we pour some of that into the solution, we'll get a reaction. There'll be a slight amount of fizzing here, and it will dissolve out the lime. Now, one can also use a muriatic acid, which will work much faster, but of course the muriatic might be a little bit more hazardous to work with.
So what does this tell you once it's dissolved?
Okay, we typically let it fizz for a few minutes. I'll move right ahead here. It won't be completely digested, but if we let it settle, we can start to see the sand down on the bottom of the jar.
Yeah.
And then we can just pour off the solution. And we're left with the sand that was originally used for the mortar in our jar.
We've gotten rid of the lime.
We've gotten rid of the lime, and from what we can see here, it's a fairly fine sand. We could put this out on a paper towel, let it dry for a few minutes, and then we could have a sand that we could match. We could take that sand to a mason and we could say, match this sand. We want the same color, we want the same texture.
And then you're making a lime mortar.
Then you have a lime mortar that will match what was originally there.
Excellent. Thanks, Tom. Next, we'll be back at our Quechee, Vermont farmhouse, looking at bathroom tile. This is the bathroom on the second floor off the hall. So this is the one that anybody in the family can use. And it's cleverly designed because the toilet and the tub are in one alcove. There'll be a door here separating it from the sink. But look at the tile. This is, again, from Shaw. It's a white tile with a blue and yellow flower and then a matching frieze. And it all goes together, you know, in the traditional simple way of mastic, a few cuts here, and then you grout it. It's essentially a two-day job, but it's come out very, very nicely. And then on the other side of the door, you'll have the lavatory. This is a Pennington self-rimming lav from Kohler, and of course it's cast iron with an enamel finish. And you've got the faucet set, which is called Revival, and often you want to make sure that you save enough in your budget to put high-quality castings in the fittings in the bathroom because they make all the difference, and you want them to last for a long, long time. Beautiful. And we're running out of time. Come home again next time, when we'll be looking at a lot of the gadgets that make this a connected home. And supermodel Kathy Ireland will join us to talk about her Shades of America carpet collection. Till then, I'm Bob Vila. It's good to have you home again. For lots of information and resources for your home improvement project, check out my website at bobvila.com.